If a healthy woman dies in childbirth in Britain, it would be a disaster. Tonight we report from an African hospital where it can be a daily event, but where promises to help are being broken. 5 years ago, world leaders signed up to targets known as the Millennium Development Goals, targets for helping the world's poor, including women dying in childbirth and pregnancy. Our story shows how we're falling behind and also takes us across the world to find reasons for hope. It is the story of one African woman's fight to stop women dying because they're pregnant. Grace Kodindo is an obstetrician in the main hospital in N'Djamena, the capital of Chad in Central Africa. We spent a week with her, filming disasters and triumphs.
She's 3 kilo 100. Not so small, huh? Hello.
Triumphs that include presiding over the delivery of a baby every 45 minutes. Most of them quite safe. The first crisis, helping a woman over a miscarriage. Miscarriages happen in Britain too, but not like this.
Pregnant for the 8th time.
8th time?
Yes. 7 children, 4 have died. That also shows a very high infantile mortality.
Like Britain, Chad has both state and private healthcare. Grace's hospital is the showcase of the state system, but Chad's NHS is not free at the point of delivery. Patients have to pay for just about everything. Antiseptic, £1. The drip, £1.50. The needle, 25 pence. Not much to us, but here many earn 50 pence a day or less. The woman's family haven't bought all she needs.
She has only paid 1 bottle of IV fluid, and it's not enough.
The hospital's supposed to provide some basics itself, but often they aren't there either.
You know, everything is lacking here. Normally, you should be having clean sheet to properly cover her, and you should also be having some oxygen.
Grace is on the front line of the battle to save women at risk in pregnancy and childbirth. But the odds are against her.
This is not an environment to decrease the rate of maternal deaths.
Today, even the light anaesthetic they normally use in this kind of operation has run out.
We would have done anesthesia to prevent the pain, but we don't have that.
Despite everything, success. The patient's over the crisis. One emergency over and some basic harsh truths established. But the day's toughest cases are still to come. Few pregnant women in Chad give birth in hospital. So the women who come here, local mums or those who've made it from the countryside, are in some ways the lucky ones. In Chad, the lifetime chance of a woman dying in pregnancy or childbirth is 1 in 11. In Britain, it's over 1 in 5,000. The heart of the maternity ward is the birthing room. 2 women are lying next to each other. In one bed is Fatime Izzadine. She's 16. She's having her baby. One of over 11,000 born here every year. The baby's fine. And Fatime's okay too, at the moment.
Lucky to be alive and healthy.
Yes.
But in the next bed, there's a problem. A woman and a baby very much at risk.
This is a very risky case.
Batul is bleeding internally. She may die, and her baby too, before it's born. She urgently needs a caesarean, which could happen in Britain. But in Britain, your family wouldn't be asked to go looking for blood.
They send a relative to go for the blood. And most of the time, there is no blood in the blood bank. So the relative should give blood.
In the hospital's blood bank, just 15 bags. Today, none in Batul's blood group. The message has gone out to her family for urgent donations. Rushing round relatives for blood during an emergency is quite normal here. But as ever, it takes time. And time is running out. Now there's concern about the baby.
Est-ce que le BDC est encore là?
Grace listens for the baby's heartbeat. In vain.
The baby is already dead.
Now Batul could die too. She needs the operation. Her bleeding needs to be stopped and the dead baby removed. But still the relatives haven't returned with any blood.
We are waiting for the blood.
You're waiting for the blood?
Yeah, that's more than 1 hour. They haven't come back.
In the next bed, there's more trouble. Fatima's baby is fine, but she is having eclampsia, a fitting attack that can lead to coma and death. With the right treatment and some simple drugs, it can almost always be prevented. But while they are giving her some drugs, they're not the ones Grace would have chosen.
Normally, we would have given magnesium sulfate.
Do you have magnesium?
We don't have it here in the whole country.
There is no magnesium sulfate in the whole country?
In the whole country, we don't have it. We don't have it. And this is known as the most effective drug against eclampsia. And this really helps to save life, and this will really help to reduce the maternal mortality.
By about 1 o'clock, Grace is getting worried. Batul's been here since about 9.
I think she is now dehydrated. She's asking for water to drink. This is not a good sign. Ça, c'est la famille.
The family comes back from their search. As well as trying to find blood, they've had to go looking for drugs in local pharmacies. What on that list have you not got?
We did not find the normal saline. He bought the antibiotics. He bought the syringe. He also bought the Foley catheter. He bought everything. Everything he has in
He's done really well, hasn't he?
Yeah, that's good.
So far, the bills come to about £30, and they'll have to buy more.
This is why some of them do not want to go to the hospital, and they stay home until it became completely out of way, and when they brought, they just died.
Grace is full of praise for the family's efforts. They've been on a desperate shopping trip, like some macabre reality show that has as its prize the life of the woman they love.
It is not easy, but they have tried to really help each other.
Five hours after Batul came to hospital, she's taken to the theatre, along with the drugs her family has bought.
No, party too.
Her baby's already dead. Now the surgeons will try to save her life. But they're going ahead with just 1 bag of blood. It's all the family have managed to provide so far. They'll need more. Grace stands by, ready to help. Then, a shock.
Elle a rompu? My God.
Batul's womb has ruptured. Grace reckons it happened some time ago, but nobody had realised.
She has ruptured her uterus here, apparently, since she has been here since 9 a.m. We hope that she will have enough of blood and antibiotics. She will survive, but the baby has died from the ruptured uterus. So it was a very high price.
Now there's an even graver emergency. The blood still hasn't arrived. Her blood pressure's dropping.
It should be higher than that.
Should be higher.
It should be higher. What she needs now is more blood. 1 bag is not enough. She has bled a lot.
Outside, while some relatives give blood, her husband and the rest of the family wait anxiously. The blood finally arrives.
They got more blood. The family has succeeded in bringing 3 more bags of blood. That really is good things. It will really decrease the risk of dying.
A life saved, as many can be when trained help and the right basic drugs are available. But the crisis isn't over yet. A relative rushes off with a new prescription.
You know, as I was telling you, she's still having fits again. That other, yeah.
Back in the birthing room, Fatime is having another eclamptic fit. Well into the evening, the temperature's still over 30 centigrade. Through the night, lives hang in the balance. Over 500,000 women die in childbirth and pregnancy every year, almost all in poor countries. Saving 3/4 of those lives by 2015 is number 5 of the 8 Millennium Development Goals. The Millennium Development Goals were signed in New York 5 years ago by 189 world leaders. For the first time, leaders of the rich and poor countries taking collective responsibility for the world's poor. They set targets for education, health, empowering women and cutting poverty. And they set deadlines, but no budgets or legal obligation to meet the goals. There's a World Summit on the MDGs in September, and the UN's preparing a progress report. This week, its author gave us a preview.
Maternal mortality is the goal for which most countries are most seriously off track. The countries that account for the bulk of this problem in particular, most of them are either sticking roughly where they are, or in many cases they're moving backwards. Now, unless we can change that picture very dramatically over the next few years, there's really no chance at all of the world meeting the target of reducing maternal mortality by 3/4 by the year 2015. This is a story which isn't a story of women and children first, it's women and children last.
It's the second day of the week we spent with Grace in Chad. It starts quite normally.
For the whole 24 hours, we had 41 deliveries and 1 case of maternal death.
Lots of babies born.
Yes, 41. Isn't that something? 41 in one day.
Grace leads the ward round.
Merci beaucoup.
Batul is okay.
She says she's fine, thanks God.
Fatime is doing all right too. Then Grace spots a woman clearly in pain and something her midwives haven't noticed.
Oh my God. Mais c'est sérieux son affaire là. Very serious case. You'll have to open her abdomen. It must be pus infection that has already spread in the whole abdomen. And if she's not properly managed, that also can cause her death. This is from the illegal abortion. She has now a septic abortion.
Abortion is illegal in Chad, as it is in most sub-Saharan African countries. It's estimated that about 1/5 of maternal deaths are from illegal abortions that go wrong, very much part of the target of lives to be saved under the Millennium Development Goal. The doctors and nurses are stunned at what's happened on their watch.
C'est une urgence parce que plus on perd le temps, plus on va perdre bêtement la femme, comme ça sous nos yeux. C'est pas bien.
Grace demands action.
Ça, c'est une urgence. This is an emergency case that can be fatal for her.
It's almost midday. The girl will need an operation this afternoon. In the theatre, dealing with a septic abortion is serious enough. The question now is whether there could be more complications. Earlier, the girl told Grace a local nurse, whose identity she didn't reveal, had performed the abortion at his house. The state she's been left in is about to become clear.
My God. Mon Dieu. Very bad. Uterus is completely perforated. The surgeon is now trying to remove the uterus just to save her life. She's going to lose her uterus, but she will be alive. All this could have been prevented if only she has been using contraceptive method. This ignorance, with lack of money, the two, bring to this.
So another life saved. While elsewhere in the maternity wards, one more death that wouldn't have happened in the rich world. But for all its daily death toll, the hospital is a sanctuary where mums give birth with trained midwives and emergency care if needed. And that is unusual in Chad. So what's having a baby like for women without any medical help? Grace took us into the barren landscape outside N'Djamena to find out. In the world's poor countries, almost 1 woman in 2 gives birth without help from a qualified doctor or midwife. That's over 60 million births. They happen in places like Showa. The only help available here is what are called traditional birth attendants, or TBAs. 3 traditional birth attendants were waiting to see us.
Okay, can I say hello?
Hello,
Je m'appelle Steve.
They told us how they try to help with emergencies, like a retained placenta.
When the baby is coming out, I help it. When the placenta is stuck inside, I put my hand in to take it out.
They have no other way to remove the placenta. They are only using their hands, and they try. If they remove, and they cannot remove the whole piece, sometimes there are remaining pieces, and the woman died. And they have many cases of maternal mortality here.
The birth attendants don't have drugs or equipment. They're untrained, and they know it.
The only way to reduce maternal mortality is to have a qualified nurse. We need to be trained and to have equipment.
They know that as they are now, they know nothing to save women's life. This is traditional way of doing things, and it's not helping to save women's life.
Showa does have a small clinic built with big hopes. It has targets set by the government for medically attended births. Last year the target was 299 and this year 307. In reality, we were told, there were no medically attended births at all. Women won't come here because there are no specially trained attendants or drugs. So women give birth at home. When we asked how often they die, we were told there were no records. We were directed instead to a village close by. In a family hut, women had gathered for the funeral of a heavily pregnant woman who died just 2 days earlier. She was called Fatime. She left a 2-year-old daughter, Mariam, now being looked after by her grandmother. Fatime had been 18.
She was complaining of fever, headache, pain in her throat and chest, and she could hardly drink.
Deaths like Fatime's are effectively off the medical map. No treatment, no record. Relatives showed us Fatime's grave. There are thousands of graves like this in the world's poor countries. Their obscurity making progress on the Millennium Development Goal almost impossible to measure.
It always go like that, unnoticed, especially for rural women, very far from hospital. They're always dying like that, without being noticed. So how the Millennium Development Goal is going to be, reached? I don't know. It's not just, it's unjust, for an 18-year-old woman to die like that. It's very, very unjust.
What will happen to the grave?
Well, many rain, it may even become completely flat. So nobody will never even notice that there was a grave here. It will become flat, with years, and then that's all.
Grace is a Protestant and takes inspiration from her religion, as does her daughter, Halima. Most of the time. Grace adopted Halima after finding her abandoned in the hospital.
I decided to adopt her because I wanted to give her, something, a chance in her life. Because apparently, she has no luck. She was just abandoned like that. It did something to me.
And now?
And now, well, we are both happy with each other. I love her, she loves me, and that's wonderful.
But even Grace's commitment can be affected by what happens in the hospital. There's already been one death today, now another.
We just have a second maternal death now. Mon Dieu.
The woman's died from eclampsia. She's one of about 100 who die from eclampsia every year in this hospital, compared to just 4 or 5 in the whole of Britain. It's another preventable death.
We had one death on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday this morning. No, this morning we had 2.
How many would there have been in the West?
None. None in the West.
How does it affect you personally?
Well, personally, it's removing all my enthusiasm, and then I don't know. I ask myself, what am I doing here? This kind of environment, where I cannot even use my knowledge to save people's life. So I feel depressed.
But life in the hospital is an emotional roller coaster. Grace is told by a midwife that a mother she's helped has named her baby after her.
Okay.
Congratulations.
She's named Grace. Dr. Grace.
How many babies have you had named after you?
Oh my God, so many.
But then, the most shocking case so far. One that will make Grace not only depressed, but angry. There's a new patient, only 12 years old.
She has attempted an abortion. She's 12 years old. Then she succeeded in aborting. But now she's in pain and bleeding. She will need a lot of antibiotics now.
Have you got them?
Well, she bought some, but she didn't. Her mother has no money to buy the other one. So her aunt went home to look for more money.
She's only a kid.
She is a kid.
What did she do to herself?
She received some injection to abort. But they will never tell you the truth, what they have really done.
Next morning, the 12-year-old girl has had an operation.
They have removed pus, they have cleaned it, and now she's on IV fluids and antibiotic.
She's still fighting for her life. But whatever happens, her future may be grim.
But the future may be infertility. She may become sterile, and she may have, some chronic pelvic abdominal pain, chronic pain.
The girl's mother tells us they live 35 kilometers away and had come here in a taxi they could only afford by sharing with other people.
She couldn't pay for a taxi, would have taken them directly here. So they have to use the taxi where other people also are driving in the same. So the taxi has to drop every one of these people before taking her here in the hospital.
Didn't anybody say, hey, we've got a sick girl here, we've got to get to hospital first?
Nobody.
Because?
They think that since they have paid the same fare, they have the same rights, and then they would have, have any compassion for her.
What can I say? There are no words. All I can think about is how to find the money to save my daughter's life.
A few days later, her daughter died. One of over 500,000 such deaths in the world's poor countries. But is such high maternal mortality inevitable? There's now remarkable research that suggests it's not, that poor countries can save more mothers' lives. It's by one of the top authorities on the politics of maternal mortality in the developing world.
I do not want to discount resources. I do not want to discount poverty. I do not want to discount donor aid. All of that is critical. However, poor countries can surmount maternal mortality problems. There are definitely grounds for optimism. I've looked at several countries where individuals and groups of individuals have managed to mobilize the political system to push political leaders to make maternal mortality reduction a policy priority and actually to have achieved documented success in reducing maternal mortality.
Individuals persuading governments to save more mothers' lives. It sounded like a dream to Grace until she read Dr. SHIFFMAN's work. His model, a little-known civil servant called Dr. CIPRIANO OCHOA, an unsung hero from Honduras, one of the poorest countries in Central America. Grace, fascinated.
I'd really like to get you to talk to Dr. Ochoa.
I really would like to, yeah.
I'm wondering if there's some way we can do that. Whether we could get him on the phone
or an email, yes.
Or email.
Or emails, I can let you my emails.
Or we could bring back the video that we filmed.
Exactly, yeah.
Or we could take
I would really like to know how he did it.
Or we could take you, or we could take you with us.
Why not? Why not? I would really like to know how he did it. He managed, to do it.
A week later, we met Grace in Honduras.
How are you? It's wonderful to see you.
Yeah, me also.
What we hope to find out, how poor countries could still cut maternal mortality in time to reach the Millennium Development Goal and save hundreds of thousands of women's lives. What Dr. Ochoa and his colleagues had done was galvanise their country into taking mothers' lives more seriously. We met the modest Dr. Ochoa in the town of Marcala at one of the simple birthing clinics he'd helped persuade the government to build across the whole country.
This is Senor Ochoa. How do you do? This is Grace. And
nice to meet you also.
He made it clear right away he thought other poor countries can do what Honduras has done.
do you believe that the Millennium Development Goals, cutting maternal mortality by 3/4, can be achieved?
Yes, I'm almost sure we can achieve that goal, probably before 2015.
In the clinic, women waited for antenatal checkups. Back in the 90s, Dr. Ochoa, then a civil servant, wondered how many women like these were actually dying while pregnant. He and his colleagues conducted a survey and found the results far worse than their own government had estimated. Mothers, they told both government and international donors, urgently needed help. And with a programme including simple clinics like this, they got it. The result? A dramatic 40% drop in maternal mortality in 7 years.
Alguna complicación ya ingresada la paciente en base al partograma.
In the labour room, the nurse in charge showed us how the course of every pregnancy is recorded moment by moment. The partogram helps doctors spot problems. Grace said her hospital used to do the same until United Nations funding dried up.
You remember the woman we saw who had the ruptured uterus in the hospital?
If she has been properly followed up by partograph, they would not have come to that.
So that could have been prevented with this kind of
Exactly, yeah. Exactly.
Grace spots something else they don't have in her hospital in Chad.
You see, they have oxygen in the labor room for the mother and the baby sick. That's very important. That's a very big difference.
Salaries here are paid by the government. Women are charged a standard 80p fee, and additional funds are raised voluntarily in local communities. The buildings often paid for by foreign donors. Then a simple device to revive dying babies. Again, nothing like it back in Grace's hospital.
Do you know what they cost?
$40.
$40.
$40. That would have really be helpful in Chad to help to save a baby's life. And it's almost cheap.
The few simple things needed to deliver most babies safely, ready and waiting.
I really feel envious. I feel envy. I mean, they have what is really needed, to help to save life.
Honduras has been helped in saving mothers' lives by a relatively stable political environment, by a culture that's come to take women more seriously, by a good long-term relationship with aid donors, and by the quiet determination of Dr. Ochoa and his colleagues.
He's a good man. Really, I like him. And he's humble, he's simple, He's also very, very realistic. I would have loved to work in this environment, but it would make me even more efficient, in my work to help save the woman's and baby's life. Really, I would have loved to work here in this condition.
So, most mums much safer. But what about women who live far away from the new clinics? In remote mountain villages like San Isidro, really poor women often have trouble even raising the bus fare to a clinic. As in Chad, they still have to rely on traditional birth attendants. Eugenia's been a TBA for 2 decades. Grace watched her at work with Maria, 5 months pregnant with her 4th child.
You have to eat lots of vegetables. You must feed yourself better. You're not eating enough. The baby isn't growing. It's very small.
But here's the difference with Chad. If things go wrong, Eugenia's been trained to refer women like Maria to a clinic. Grace was curious.
If they tell you to go to the hospital, you will go to the hospital, huh?
If there are no problems, I'll have it here at home with Eugenia. But if there are complications, I'll go to the hospital.
In Chad, Grace had despaired of the traditional birth attendants, untrained and self-appointed. But here, most are now state-trained, and for Grace, it worked.
How do they compare to the traditional birth attendants in Chad?
I mean, they are completely different. I mean, not only they have been trained to diagnose complication, but they are even given equipment. I have never seen that in Chad. It's wonderful.
It's true that Honduras is a little wealthier than Chad, but out here in San Isidro, you wouldn't know it. The next day, Maria's husband Santos showed us his larder. More colourful than well-stocked. He grows enough corn and beans to feed his family, but only just. After all, his wife had been told she wasn't eating enough for the baby. When he has a little extra, he sells it, making a cash income of about £40 a year. For Grace, it all seemed very familiar.
In many areas in Africa, we have the same problem. This is extreme poverty.
So, new clinics and trained birth attendants. But what about real emergencies? Suyapa's 15, heavily pregnant, and she's had a miscarriage already. Today, she's off up a mountainside with her mother-in-law, an hour's slog before she can reach any sign of civilization. And she tells us she may be due inside a week. Cases like this can still turn out badly. Pregnant women in Honduras still over 7 times as likely to die as in Britain. But Suyapa's lucky. Her local town is Esperanza, and it's home to one of the big regional hospitals which do treat mums with real emergencies. She's given the all clear. You could kid yourself it's the NHS, or almost. There's a nominal fee. In the delivery room, another safe birth. They handle up to 10 deliveries a day. There were just 2 deaths last year, again 1 after insisting on delivering at home.
How do you say congratulations in Spanish? Felicidades. I want to tell her felicidades.
In a poor country, it's a standard of equipment and care close to rich world standards.
Do you need to be a rich country to be able to afford all this?
I'm not sure. I think there's a lot of poverty here, but I think what there has been are some good decisions to put what little money has been borrowed or donated where it's needed. These are examples of that. So not only are we a country with poverty, debts and corruption, but we're also a country that takes good decisions.
Yeah, it's the political will, to do things. Even with few resources, if the government really wants to attack a problem and they take good decisions, as you said, they will succeed.
When 189 countries, including Chad and Honduras, signed up to the Millennium Development Goals, part of the deal was rich countries increasing aid, plus action on trade and debt relief. In return, poor countries committed themselves to better governance, spending money honestly and effectively. The aim, a global partnership for development, enshrined as Goal 8. And here it's worked.
This is combined oral pill.
Honduras doing everything its government believes is right to try and save mothers' lives. Hospitals in a Catholic country even giving away contraceptives.
So they've got condoms and contraceptive pills?
Yes.
Here in the pharmacy?
Yeah.
And back in N'Djamena you had what?
We have none of them.
How important is that to preventing maternal mortality?
It's very important because if you prevent unwanted pregnancy, that most frequently led to criminal abortion, it will decrease the maternal deaths from abortion.
Grace had begun her journey feeling defeated. So how did she feel now in Esperanza, the town whose name translates as hope?
Are you as pessimistic as you were before you came here about cutting maternal mortality?
No, because I can see that even a country not very rich like Honduras, when they really are aware of the problem and they want to fight it, with their small means, they can do something. And that really gives me hope that the Millennium Development Goal can be met if people are really responsible enough to take the right intervention to work for it.
So you're still feeling as depressed as you were when we last filmed a ward round in Chad?
No, not less than that, because I know that it is possible really to do something if there is a will to do it.
We told the man writing a progress report on the Millennium Development Goals about Grace, and we asked him whether her newfound optimism was justified.
Grace's optimism is completely justified. We know from the evidence from a large group of countries that it's possible to get maternal mortality rates and child death rates down very quickly. Countries like Malaysia, Sri Lanka, Egypt and Honduras have all shown that. We also know that it would cost very little. We're talking about $6 billion a year to cut these maternal mortality rates and child death rates at the level needed to achieve the Millennium Development Goals. That's equivalent to roughly 1 week's worth of what rich countries currently waste on subsidising agriculture. The real problem is not the lack of financial resources, it's not the technologies, it's not the policies, it's the political resolve to make them happen.
Back in Chad, time to celebrate. At least for this high society couple. Suddenly there seems to be money to spare. Look more closely and it's recycled. Still, the few Western haunts in Chad seem to be booming. Chad does have something to celebrate. Oil, 1 billion barrels discovered under its desert sands. Petrol has long been something you find here in old bottles. Now Chad's own reserves are set to boost government revenues. But will more money really help Chad's mothers? In hospital, Grace encounters attitudes that money alone won't change. Fanny is 15. She's just had her second child at home, close to the hospital. But it's gone wrong, and now she's here with a potentially serious complication.
The baby has come out, but the placenta did not come. You should normally follow the delivery of the baby. It hasn't happened in this case.
So is that dangerous?
Yes, because she may have hemorrhage, a lot of bleeding, and this is one of the causes of maternal death.
Husband Hassan has gone to buy some drugs. Grace tells Fanny they'll help pull her through.
So it will help to contract the uterus and detach the placenta, so it will come back easily now.
But Grace is furious. Hassan let Fanny deliver at home.
When she started to have pain labor, she told her husband, I want to go to the hospital. Her husband said, wait, I have some business to attend in town. He tells us about the low status of women in this country. Women have a very, very, very low status.
She goes to find Hassan. He says Fanny didn't tell him she was about to give birth. Still, Grace decides to issue a stern warning. Whoever's in the wrong, the incident raises a crucial issue for Grace.
We need people to change their way of thinking, especially about woman status. Woman is not something that you buy, you keep, she produces baby, she die, and you buy another woman. But because the thing like that, you know, I buy her, she make children, she die, I will buy another woman, that's all. It's things that you can buy, keep, that's all.
So as Chad's oil money starts rolling in, will it seize the chance to save mothers' lives? Or do cultural attitudes to women in countries like Chad mean that even if they find the means to help, they still don't have the will? AZIZA BAROUD is Chad's health minister. She's also an economist who coordinates how to spend the country's new oil revenues. We asked to meet in the hospital. Grace wanted to show her around.
Exactly, yeah.
She's promised to increase spending on maternal health, though there are few signs of it so far.
Just explain to me why the oil is already flowing out. We're getting the benefit of it. But the syringes, the drugs, as we see here, are not yet coming in.
So you have to understand one thing also, that it is not because the day you have the money that the day you will change everything, because you have your system of management, you have all those matters that you have to perform.
Well, there's always management and stuff, but somehow the oil's going to the west.
Absolutely.
But the drugs and the syringes aren't coming in here.
Yeah, it is much more a matter of organization inside the hospital and inside the services.
If the drugs and syringes aren't yet coming in, some people are going to say, look, some people will say that's, you know, African corruption and incompetence.
It is not a matter of corruption, and here again I would like to put the emphasis in what I'm saying, that it is a problem of management. It is not a question of corruption.
So corruption not a relevant issue, she claims, although management competence is. But what about cultural attitudes and caring?
Do you think countries like Chad care enough about mothers, care enough about women?
Culture and attitudes you can change through communication, through information, and that's it.
What some people are saying at the moment, at the time of the G8, is, hey, you get your act together first. Change your attitudes, change culture, spend the money with more efficiency, and then we'll think about giving you some more.
Spend the money with more efficiency, I agree with them. Change your culture, this is very difficult because we are human beings and you don't have any computer that you put our mind inside and change us as you want. This is a problem.
We went to visit a 16-year-old girl called Dana who had eclampsia.
She's a 16-year-old. And she had her first pregnancy, and she was admitted for high blood pressure.
She was another patient Grace had been unable to treat with the cheap, effective drugs that might save her life.
What do you think when you see it?
I feel very sad. I feel very sad.
Grace took the chance to tell the minister about what she'd learnt in Honduras and about the need for a national strategy on maternal mortality.
The problem in Chad is that we should have a strategy for maternal death reduction.
Yes.
And they have found out that the maternal death was very high. So they have tried to put down a committee who has worked on the strategy.
It is okay that someone moved in Honduras, and we need someone to move here, but I don't believe that we have to go in Honduras and copy what is like
While you're waiting, there's a woman
who is saying that we are waiting.
Shutters.
Who is saying that we are waiting?
Well, there's a woman waiting there behind these shutters for the right drugs.
No, okay. Because you take one case and you say that people are sleeping in their houses.
But this woman's waiting. She's waiting behind those shutters.
Okay, but
she's waiting now.
You want today, because of this woman, that Chad could change. Okay, thank you for the lesson.
Back inside, Dana was being looked after by her family. She'd developed eclampsia after having a cesarean. It had been her first pregnancy. A couple of hours later, Dana was passing into a coma. We went back later to find out what had happened to Dana.
Grace, what happened to Dana?
Well, she died. She died. Oh, I mean, this is a preventable death. You know, she could have received the proper drugs to cut the convulsion, to cut the blood pressure, proper reanimation, and she would have survived. 16-year-old, one baby. It's very sad. Again, a useless death. Could have been prevented.
I mean, despite this, you keep going. Your optimism, is that putting it too strong?
Well, I don't know how long I'm going to keep going like this. You know, really, I really don't know. I may just stop because I mean, it's working on my nerves also. So I don't know how long I can go on like this. Okay.
2 weeks since we filmed with Grace, she's still trying to stop mothers dying. She's not given up yet.